Hi everyone, welcome to another video. I have a massive pile of books here, and today I'm going to be doing my autumn book recommendations. And some of these aren't necessarily like super autumn themed, but I just think they're kind of good to read around more this time of year. Some of them are kind of suitable for any time of year really, but I would just recommend them this kind of time of year. I'll explain why when I get to them. Okay. So I've kind of split my recommendations into 4 main categories, and those categories are romance, thriller mystery, fantasy, and then other. So I've got at least a few recommendations for each category. I'm going to go through them one at a time, and yeah, hopefully you'll find some good books that you would like to read this autumn. So let's get into the video. I'm going to start off with romance books. So the first romance series that I'm going to recommend for this time of year is the Chestnut Spring series by Elsie. I mean, everybody's talking about these at the moment. All over summer, everyone's been like raving about these, and I've only read the first 2. I've read Flawless and Heartless, and I really enjoyed both of them. So I'm hoping to get to these ones this autumn. And they're all based on this like ranch, so they're kind of like cowboy romance, small town vibes. They're just really cozy and easy to read, so I definitely would recommend these if you're thinking of like binging a romance series or something. These are perfect. I mean, they're perfect for any time of year really, but I just think the small town vibes kind of gives me autumn. I don't know why. So that's kind of why I'm recommending those, but yeah, I'm not going to talk about these too much more because everybody is literally talking about these at the moment. I'm sure you've heard of them. I'm sure you know kind of roughly what they're about. But yeah, small town vibes, cozy romance, cowboy vibes. Yeah, they're just really, really good. Well, the 2 that I've read so far are really good. So they're the first ones I'm going to recommend to you. Next, I'm recommending kind of like a college-based romance series, which is the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy. Each book in this series follow one of the boys on the hockey team at this college, and it goes through each of their romance in each book. And there's 5 books in total. The first 4 books are like one following like a different character per book, and then the 5th book is kind of like an epilogue novel of like how all the characters are doing years in the future. I just thought these are good to read this time of year because of the kind of college setting, because in the autumn is kind of when everyone goes back to school, goes back to college, go back to university, that kind of thing. So I thought they would be a perfect kind of romances to read, and I really enjoyed this series as well. I read them a couple years ago, and the first book in the series, The Deal, was definitely my favourite, but I did enjoy all of them, so I do definitely recommend this series. And next is a romance which is on the much darker side, which is Too Late by Colleen Hoover. Now, I read this years ago on my Kindle because she only had it was only available on Kindle, but recently I know she's released like a physical copy of this book, so a few more people have been reading it recently, and this is definitely more of a darker romance. It is a romance, there is romance in it, but it is very dark, and there are lots of trigger warnings of like physical abuse, sexual abuse, that kind of thing. So if you don't want to read anything about that, don't pick up this book. And kind of about halfway through the book, it kind of turns into a kind of thriller vibe. I didn't know whether to put it in romance or thriller. It kind of comes under both, but I thought the main premise of the book is more focused on the romance and yeah, the bad relationship she has with this guy and stuff. So yeah, you'll see what I mean when you read it, but I do recommend it. It was very good, very gripping, but it is just very dark. The next book I'm going to recommend to you, I didn't know where to put this, what category to put this in, because it could fall under multiple categories, to be honest, but I've just put it under the romance category because Colleen Hoover is primarily a romance author, so I thought I'd just put it under this category anyway. And this is Layla by Colleen Hoover, and it's about this couple. It's actually read from the male's perspective, because books like this are usually always written from the female's perspective, but this is written from the male's perspective. There's this couple who their relationship's falling apart because the woman had like an accident, and since then she's not been the same. They go to this bed and breakfast where they first met, and he was hoping that it would kind of bring their relationship back and bring her back to normal and like just fix their relationship really. But instead his partner Layla, which is the female character, but yeah, Layla starts to change when they get here, and things like creepy things start happening, and the husband's trying to figure out what the hell's going on. So it's quite interesting, and it takes a different turn than any of her other books take. So that's why I didn't know what category to put this under, but I did enjoy this book. It was very different for her and very different to anything I've ever read, to be honest, but I do recommend it, especially for this time of year because of the spooky kind of creepy vibes. The next category I'm going to go through are like mystery thriller kind of books, and the first book series that I'm going to recommend to you is the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, and these are so good, and these are mixed media as well, so that kind of makes you go through them a lot quicker because there's like interviews, transcripts, things like that. There are 3 books in this series. I fully enjoyed all of them, but my favourite, to be honest, was the last one, As Good as Dead. This one some people loved, some people didn't love, but I did really enjoy it. This is a young adult mystery series. And the first book is based around a murder that happened years ago that never got completely solved, or it did, but Pip, the main girl character in these books, she doesn't believe that is actually what happened, what they said happened. She bases her school project around the murder case and tries to figure out exactly what actually happened and prove that what the police think happened didn't actually happen and it was something completely different. So it was really good. I fully enjoyed all these books, and they're definitely good for this time of year because mystery thrillery kind of books just perfect for this time of year. So I definitely recommend this series, and also they are making a TV series of this and I can't wait for that to come out. I don't think there's any release day or anything. I think they're like filming it and stuff at the moment, but whenever it comes out I will be definitely watching it because I can't wait. And next I'm going to recommend the One of Us is Lying series by Karen M. McManus. There is a 3rd book come out which I haven't read yet, and that came out I think in September, I can't remember, but I think it's just very recently come out, but I haven't read it yet. I did really enjoy these 2 books, and this is also a TV series as well on Netflix. There's 2 seasons which are quite different to the books, to be honest. The first one's quite similar and the second one is nothing like the book. And also the second season on the TV series ends in kind of a cliffhanger, and I think the next season's been cancelled, so won't ever find out what happens considering they're nothing like the books really. But the first book is about these 4 pupils at school, and they all get into detention for different reasons. So they're all in detention and one of them dies, basically. One of them gets murdered, and so the other 4 people that were in detention with them are obviously suspects, and it's going through all of that. And you don't know if any of them are actually guilty and what happened, and it's kind of going through all of their perspectives and trying to figure out who actually was the murderer. The second book follows different characters, but also some of the characters in this book are in this one as well, and I just thought they're really good, quick, easy reads. And again, because they're kind of mystery vibes based in a school kind of thing, they are perfect for this time of year. I'm also going to recommend Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell, and this one was one of my favourites by her that I've read so far. This one follows a mum who she lost her daughter years ago. She went missing and the police just say she ran away, but obviously the mum doesn't think that she did run away because it's really out of character. And then years later the mum meets a guy and she meets his kids, and she realises that one of them looks creepily like her daughter. So it's really strange, and to be honest I did guess how this was going to end, and I did guess kind of what happened throughout the book, but it didn't ruin my enjoyment of the book. I really enjoyed kind of figuring out how it got there, figuring out how she finds out and puts it all together herself. I just really enjoyed this, so I definitely recommend this if you want kind of a good mystery book as well. Then finally, in the mystery thriller kind of category is the Mindf series by St. Abbey, and this is a series of 5 books, but they're all really short, so it kind of counts as one book, I suppose. I mean, they are 5 separate books, but it could easily be one book. And this follows a female serial killer who she's killing men for the right reasons, basically, because they've all done terrible things. So she's murdering all these men. She ends up falling in love with the detective who's working on her case. So he doesn't know that she's the murderer. He's trying to find the murderer, but they're also forming a relationship together. So it's just so good, so gripping, very dark, a little bit gruesome at times, but it is absolutely amazing. I highly recommend this series. It was so gripping. I flew through this, and this series definitely does not get enough hype because it's so good, and it's on Kindle Unlimited as well, so that's where I read it on. And next, moving on to the fantasy category, there's not a huge amount of books in this category because I haven't read a huge amount of new fantasy series recently, which I really do want to. If you have any fantasy recommendations, please let me know in the description below because I really want to read more fantasy this autumn winter. First of all, I'm going to recommend the Throne of Glass series, which I know is talked about quite a bit, and Sarah J. Maas is an amazing author and really well-known author. So many people love her books, especially the Court of Thorns and Roses series, and I have all the old covers of the books, and mine are very well loved, especially the first one because I read the first one 3 times I think, and I do want to do a reread of this whole series and annotate the books as well because it's just literally, this series is my favourite series of all time. It's just so good. I love all the characters, the plot is just so deep and incredible, and love this series so much. And the reason I'm recommending this series for this time of year is because there are so many books in this series and they're quite thick, and I feel like this time of year is the perfect time to like get cozy on the sofa with a blanket, like a warm drink, some biscuits or something, and just cozy up on the sofa and just get really deep into a fantasy series. So this series would be perfect if you want something that's quite a long series, something you can get really deep into and just fully enjoy. So if you haven't read this series, please pick it up because it is amazing. It's my favourite series of all time, and if you haven't read it, you are missing out. Got two more fantasy series to recommend to you. One series is the Entangled with Fae series by Tessonja and Odette. All of these books are on Kindle Unlimited and they're kind of set in a Fae world, and each one of these books, there's 5 books out at the moment. I've read all of them except from the 5th one, which has just recently come out, which I'm hoping to read this month. Each of the books are a different fairy tale retelling, so there's like Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, that kind of thing, and they all kind of, it's a loose retelling, but you can see how they are a retelling of each one, and they're just all really good. They do quite focus on the romance as well, so these are definitely fantasy romance, but I just really like the world. I like the stories, they're just really good, and they all do link together. There is a crossover of the characters between each of the books, so I would recommend reading them in order for it to get the full experience, but you can read them in any order, it doesn't really matter. The final fantasy series I'm going to recommend, I've actually only read the first book in this series, and that's the Serpent and the Wings of the Night, which I think is called the Crowns of Nyaxia series. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I've read the first book in this series last month and I really enjoyed it, and I'm hoping to get to the other books in the series very soon. And this is kind of like, it's a trials based fantasy, so it's kind of, it reminds me of Hunger Games because they're fighting to the death kind of thing, going through these trials. Only one person can survive at the end and be the winner. And also there's like groups of people that are like becoming allies, kind of like they did in Hunger Games, but it's based around vampires. So most of the characters in this book are vampires. The main character is a human, but she's taking part in these trials with other vampires, so it's really good. I love the trial aspect of it, and there is also kind of a little romance going on as well, which develops later on in the book. I just feel like anything vampires is kind of good for this time of year. It's kind of spooky, even though this book's not spooky at all. It kind of gives you those kind of vibes, you know what I mean? So yeah, I do recommend this series, and it's also on Kindle Unlimited as well. So, and then the final category that I'm going to pull out some recommendations for is kind of, I just called it general fiction, but I literally don't know. It's just kind of any books that didn't fit into any of these categories. So I've got 3 recommendations here. The first one is The Push by Ashley Audrain, and I love this book so much. I actually read it on my Kindle, but I picked this one up at charity shop for like £1, and annoyingly enough it's actually falling apart. There's a few pages that are coming out, but never mind. And it says on the back of this that it's a psychological thriller, but I don't really think it is. I don't know. I honestly don't know what category I'd put this on. I suppose that's probably the closest category that you can get for it. But it goes back and forth between 2 timelines. So the main character it surrounds around, she's a mum and she's got a daughter, and it feels like her daughter is evil. And also it goes back to her and her mum, and her mum also thought that she was evil. So it passes down throughout generations. And yeah, so the main character thinks her daughter is a monster and no one else sees it but her, and you're kind of going through the book and it's hard because you don't know whether she's making it up in her head or whether it is actually real. It's one of those, and even with the ending you don't know fully whether it was real or not, or whether she was just making it up all in her head. But I flew through this, to be honest. I tried getting my mum to read it, but she couldn't get into it. So it's probably a hit and miss book for some people, but I fully enjoyed this. I love books like this that kind of play with your mind and you don't know what's real and what isn't. So I love this, and this sort of book is perfect for this time of year. So please pick this up if you're interested in that kind of thing that kind of messes with your mind. I'm also going to recommend Carissa is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid, or anything by Taylor Jenkins Reid, to be honest, because she's an amazing author. But this book, it's based around tennis, and I didn't think I would like a book about tennis because I'm not interested in sport in the slightest. But this was so good, and she can just write characters so well, and the character development in this book was just unmatched. So it's about a tennis player called Carissa. Back in her day, she was like the best tennis player in the world. Well, best female tennis player in the world, I'm not sure. And she'd set a record for the most like slams won. And then years later, after her retirement, she sees that there's this another girl that's come along who's now going to overtake her record, and she wants to claim it back. So she comes back, which is why it's called Carissa is Back, and she tries to beat this other woman. But there is just like there's more to this book. It goes through Carrie's relationship with her father, which is so sweet. And yeah, there is a lot of character development because she's an unlikable character, but you do root for her at the same time. And even if tennis and sport does not interest you at all, this I would still definitely recommend because, as I said, I don't find sport interesting at all, but I really, really enjoyed this book. And I would recommend the audiobook for this as well because there's a few mixed media aspects to it as well, which are read by different authors, and it kind of just makes it come to life a little bit more. And then finally, I'm going to recommend to you Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman, and I recently just listened to this via audio and I really enjoyed this so much more than I thought I was going to. I didn't know completely what this was about going into it, and that's probably a good thing. It's about a woman who's in her late 20s and she comes across as very rude and abrupt, and she's very socially awkward. And she doesn't know how to act in social situations. She spends most of her time alone. And throughout the book, you slowly figure out why she is the way she is and that she's gone through a lot of trauma as a child. And it's kind of, the book's going through her like working through that trauma and opening up to people and realizing that she doesn't deserve to be alone. And it kind of makes you think like, you see people out who may appear a little bit strange, but there could be a reason for the way they act that way. You just don't know. You don't know what's gone on in people's lives, and it just makes you really think. And I feel like this book was so cute, so heartwarming, but also very, very deep and sad and emotional at the same time, and you really, really feel for the main character. So I definitely recommend this, and I would recommend this by audio. I mean, I don't know what my experience would have been like if I read it physically, but via audio is a really, really good experience, and the narrator did a fantastic job. So yeah, that is all my book recommendations for this video. I hope there's some books here that will be of interest to you. And also, if you have any further recommendations, please leave them in the description below because I'm always up for more book recommendations, even though my TBR is just like a mile long, but you can never have too many books on your TBR. Please give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and please subscribe if you'd like to see more from me, and I'll hopefully see you next time. See you later.